Go.
Okay, I just wanted to tell you that Mother was a lot of fun to be around. I enjoyed going over there on the weekends and visiting with her because she would always have something for me to do. You never get bored when you go over to her house. That was what I look forward to every time I go over there. And one thing she always had me to do was to sweep the front porch before I go home. I couldn't go home without doing that.
When I'd go to visit Granny, and I'd come up to the front door and knock on the door, she'd always meet you with a big grin on her face and say, "Lordy, look who's here." And then you'd go in and visit her, and she'd make sure that you had something to eat or drink. She always took good care of you when you were there, made you feel comfortable. And after a good visit, we'd go out on the way to the car, and she'd say, "Oh, I just love my family." If we didn't have our family, where would we be? And she had a good family that adored her, and she had 4 children that took care of her in the last years of her life, and they honored her in the way they cared for her.
One of the things I remember about my mother was her love for animals. She always had a cat and a dog and maybe some kittens around the house, but she had one special pet, and that was a turtle. It would come visit her in the spring and the summer months, and she would always feed it. I remember being up with her one weekend, and we were sitting on the front porch, and this little turtle came by. She told me to go get some bread, and I ran in the house to get the bread, and we crumbled it up and put it out for the little turtle to eat. I was always amazed that this little turtle was so lucky to find someone so loving and kind like my mother.
One of my favorite memories of Mima was Christmas at her house. I remember us all eating and opening presents and gathering around to take pictures after we had opened our presents, and everybody laughing and fighting over who was going to go first and who had to sit by who and how long it was taking, but in the end it was all fun, and we ended up with some really good pictures of everybody. I also remember some of her foods that were my favorite, pinto beans, and her bread pudding has become one of our favorite desserts at our house, and her chocolate gravy was very special too. The last thing I remember were her sayings when she would tell the kids, bless their little hearts, and she would also say, "Isn't that a sight?" whenever they did something, whether it was good or bad. So I had some very fond memories of her. She was very special.
Oh, I have so many memories of Mother. One of the memories that comes to mind is she would call our house when we weren't home. She would leave a message, and she would say, "Barbara, this is your mother." Oh, I can just hear her saying that now. And then there's the memory of the purse. Oh, the dreaded purse. Everywhere we went, Mother had to have her purse. We would say, "Mother, you probably won't need your purse." "Oh, I'll just take it. I might need my purse." So here we go with Mother and this purse on her arm. I found a little saying or poem the other day that I thought was real fitting for us, the family, and Mother. "In tears we saw you sinking. We watched you fade away. Our hearts were almost broken. You fought so hard to stay. But when we saw you sleeping, so peacefully free from pain, we could not wish you back to suffer so again. So keep your arms around her, Lord, and give her special care. Make up for all that she suffered and all that seemed so unfair. I love you, Mother."
After Harry passed away, Barbara and I would always take Miss Lawrence groceries. We usually did this on Sunday afternoon. Barbara would call and get her order, and we would go to Harps and pick them up. She always wanted milk that had a good date, and she always wanted you to present her with a ticket. She wouldn't pay until you presented her with a ticket. In later years, I started teasing her that she owed me $200. She seemed confused and genuinely concerned, and she kept asking Barbara if I really owed her $200. And I would laugh and she would laugh, and she knew it was just a joke.
I remember going to my grandmother's house as a young child, riding in my dad's old red Ford truck. Well before the road to Landis was even paved. It would take us forever to get down there and forever to get back. We'd always sit around Sunday afternoons and talk about what was going on. If it ever rained, we'd always rush back because we were worried the creek would get up and we wouldn't be able to get back over the bridge. I remember all sorts of things about being down there as a child. I always loved the way that she referred to little things like babies and pets, as she'd always say things like, bless their sweet little bones, or poor little thing. My wife and I still refer to our children that way, oftentimes thinking of her. I sure will miss her. We had some good times there.
As most of you know, Mother never learned to drive. So later in life, after Daddy passed away, she relied on her children to bring her groceries, a few clothes, or anything we thought that she might need for the next week. Well, she would be waiting on the front porch when we pulled in the drive. She would insist on holding the front door open as we carried in the packages. And she would follow us into the kitchen. She would watch as we pulled each thing out of the bag. She would smile, clap her hands together, and laugh. And it didn't matter if we brought oranges, apples, peaches. They were the prettiest oranges, apples, peaches. They were the best honey buns, the most beautiful clothes. She enjoyed everything we brought her, and we were so happy that she was so thankful. And I have learned from that, Mother, the joy of being generous and the importance of always being thankful for the smallest things in life. I will carry that in my heart forever, and I love you so much.
I have lots of great memories of Gladys. The first one would be how she would always have to hug your neck and tell you how much she loved you when you walked in the door. The next would be the smell of roast when you would walk in. She knew how much I loved her roast, and she would always have a roast and a big onion sitting there waiting for me whenever I got there. And I always enjoyed doing little projects around the house for her when they would come up. She would always have to be there and make sure I was doing them right and doing them to her standards. Occasionally I would try to sneak off outside and get something done without her knowing about it, but never could quite finish it without her finding out I was already out there and got started on it, and she would have to come out and give it her seal of approval. We'll always miss her. I really loved her.
I have so many fond memories of Granny Lawrence. One of my fondest memories from when I was a child would be working at the store that her and Papa Lawrence owned. I loved working on the cash register. I would get really nervous when people would drive up and they would help me and say, you can do it, go ahead. Also, when I would be visiting over the summer, I would go with them to buy groceries, go to town in their little red truck, and my Papa would let me drive, which was a lot of fun. And another thing is the Vicks cure-all for everything that Granny had. So it didn't matter if you had a cold or whatever. She wanted you to put Vicks under your nose, on your chest. And a couple years ago when my mom and I were there, I had a backache and I had ice on my back. And she saw it. She insisted on me getting the Vicks so she could rub the Vicks all over my back. So it was very funny.